My entitled manager treats me like garbage on a daily basis, constantly being manipulative and treating me and my coworkers like garbage. So I decided to get revenge by resigning from my position just to prove that this guy could not manage my department without me being there. And as a result, this guy didn't even last more than 3 months after I quit. And I've honestly never felt better about getting revenge on anybody in my life. Here's what happened. So I started my last job in 2017. I was a part-time warehouse worker who over a few years was promoted into a transport management role. Myself and another colleague ran our department between us, only really reporting to our then line manager if we needed support with any part of our job, or even if we needed some time off. But other than that, he trusted us completely to run things. It wasn't without its stressful days, but we had a really good thing going. Then in 2021, the business made some changes, moved our then line manager into different departments, and got a new designated manager just to manage us too and our department. We were naturally quite bitter about it, but nevertheless, we thought that we'd give it a chance. Well, this guy turned out to be an absolute control freak and a bully, but he was strange. He could be very supportive one minute, then a manipulative bully the next. He loved poking fun out of the fact that I had a car accident last year. He loved solely targeting me for the bad jobs and loved causing trouble between me and other colleagues. Then in March of this year, my girlfriend fell ill whilst pregnant and was forced to give birth to our son 6 weeks prematurely. It was quite an awful and traumatic time, and I ended up having 3 weeks off of work. When I returned, I had a mountain of work to catch up on that nobody even attempted to cover in my absence. Now, as I tried to catch up on it, my manager was pulling me away to do other projects for him, and this is when his other 2 staff members weren't doing anything. So, as a result, when my work was late, he was always kicking off at me that I couldn't manage my time properly. Fast forward to May, and he made a major mistake, and he actually pinned the blame on me for it. It caused issues between me and 2 colleagues that I had to work closely with, and I was threatened with disciplinary action. Then I just got thinking to myself, without me running his department, he is literally nothing. Without me, he wouldn't even have a job. Without me, he wouldn't be able to explain what was going on in his department to the senior management, and how I ran his department for him on half of his salary, yet he takes all the glory while we get all the grief. I had one last run-in with him over this mistake that he'd made, and handed in my formal notice into him the following day. It was funny over those 4 weeks of serving my notice, just watching him slowly take over my responsibilities and simply struggling with any of them. And it's those same responsibilities that he often told me that he didn't even know what I did during the day. He had to then do the horrible jobs he used to pile up on me. And on my final day in June, I straight up told my former colleagues that I'll give him 3 months before he either quits or gets fired. Well, within the first few weeks, the department massively failed their monthly audit, which sparked attention of company directors who were sent in to investigate, as this had never happened before. And then fast forward a month later, and I was on holiday and had one of the senior managers ringing me up, as well as texting me asking for passwords for the systems. And this is because my line manager had gone on holiday and hadn't organized anything. I ignored him because I don't work there anymore and I was on holiday myself. But then he kept continuing making mistakes. Namely, he didn't order essential items, which caused trouble for the site. He didn't have a clue about the job in question, which was something I wanted to prove originally. Then a month after that, he was suspended from his duties pending further investigation, as management finally realized he couldn't do his job in question. Well, a month after that, management claimed he quit with immediate effect. But you know what? I think he was fired. But either way, my 3 months prediction was right, and he simply couldn't run that shift without me. It really is petty revenge quitting a job to prove a point, but I proved it nonetheless. So honestly, good riddance to him. Now I run my own business, I have a much better work and life balance, I'm earning more than I could ever dream of in that place, and overall life is truly fantastic. Talk about seriously rolling the dice. This guy went out of his way just to resign, to straight up prove that his boss absolutely could not do his job, and I personally think that takes a bunch of guts to do. Like, the original poster really went out on a limb. They knew for a fact they would be fine, but they were convinced that their manager would fall apart in 3 months flat. And the best part about it is that they were right. This guy could not do that job even if his life depended on it. He was too busy shipping this work off to the original poster to even begin to learn how to do this job in the first place. And that fact alone is truly hilarious to me. And I can't think of a better person for that to happen to. I can't stand managers who kick the can down the road and expect someone else to pick up their slack while also trying to blame those people on the mistakes that they're making. Like, seriously, that's the definition of someone who should not be a manager. So truly good for the original poster for having the bravery to do this. They took a serious gamble to make a very funny point, but at the end of the day, they are definitely the one who came out on top. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own story. stories. Today, I messed up by forgetting my wallet when I decided to go on a hike. And trust me when I say this is definitely a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Here's what happened. So one of my hobbies is going hiking or walking solo in random places. A few years ago, I moved to a small European country with a low population density and lots of islands. Somehow, I decided the best time to start this hobby again was on New Year's Eve when it was bitterly cold and windy. So I woke up early and traveled to a small island that was a 3-hour bus ride and half-an-hour ferry ride away from where I lived. I got there without incident, but realized I had completely forgotten my wallet at home. So I had to survive the entire day on a few bananas I had bought, plus I didn't have any form of ID to show that I had rightfully purchased an age discount ticket. By the time I left, I had walked 10 kilometers in a few hours and spent the rest of the time in a waiting area, sheltering from the bitter cold outside. And unfortunately, this was only the start of my mess up. I managed to take the last bus back home, beginning with the ferry that carries the bus, but I was so busy uploading the beautiful photos I took that I completely failed to notice that the ferry had already landed. By the time I did notice, it was too late. It had already started heading back to the island from the mainland and the bus had already left. I spent the next few hours desperately asking around with my terrible language skills if anyone would take me back to the city I lived in, as well as contacting any of my friends from the country who could pick me up from the mainland. It didn't help that due to not having my wallet, it was completely impossible to go to another city and book a hotel for the night. Finally, on the very last ferry, some younger people reluctantly agreed to take me back. I was extremely thankful and messaged my best friend at the time that everything was alright. When I finally got to the city that I lived in after midnight, my best friend asked me if I'd gotten back safely, which I thankfully had. But you know what? I definitely learned my lesson to never forget my wallet ever again. Wow, that's seriously very scary. Like, just imagine that you're in that scenario. You're in a foreign country and you don't know the language that well, and you're stuck in the middle of nowhere practically, without any way of getting in contact with your friends or any form of identification to even prove that you are who you say you are. Like, I don't know about you, but I would be freaking out in this scenario. First of all, the original poster gets it. They should have turned around the second they realized they didn't have their wallet and turned right back around and just got the wallet. Even if that means you have to cancel the hike altogether, at least you're not going to be stranded without any way of fending for yourself. So sure, this is one of those lessons that you learn it the hard way, but the next time around, trust me, you'll never forget it again. An entitled mother does absolutely nothing to stop her kid from acting like a maniac. And after watching the way this spoiled little brat was acting, I can confidently say that I never want to have kids. Here's what happened. So this happened a few months ago around the end of summer. As a gift, my friend took me to an amusement park, and we did the typical park things, like going on puke-inducing rides and spending a fortune on funnel cake. At some point, though, my friend had to use the restroom. I told my friend that I'd stay where I was because I wanted to try and win a prize from one of the other games as a sort of thank you for taking me to this place. So my friend goes off to find a restroom, and I get in line for a game that's pretty cheap. It was essentially a giant form of let's go fishing type of thing, except there were small stickers inside the mouths of the fish that dictated the size of the prize that you won. Right behind the counter was a large bin of small plushies, and the bigger plushies were on the wall. Standing in front of me was the entitled mother and the entitled kid of this story. If I had to guess, the entitled kid had to have been about 6 years old. Now, this kid was obviously very small, but God forbid that this entitled mother just help her kid guide the fake fishing rod so the fish would bite it. But no, of course that's not gonna happen. Instead, this entitled kid just had to stand on the counter so she could get a fair chance at winning. Now, I can see why the people would think it's normal, but here's one thing I haven't mentioned yet. It was currently sprinkling, and had been for the past half hour, meaning that the entitled kid's shoes were covered in mud. Not only that, but this kid was constantly moving and walking side to side on the counter because she wanted this one specific fish. So the counter was now decorated with small child shoe prints, and the entitled mother didn't even try to clean it up, but instead just left it for the park employee to clean up themselves. Now, if you think that this is bad, well then just trust me because it gets a lot worse. Eventually, this kid finally catches the fish that she's been trying to get, and inside the mouth was a red sticker, which meant you won the smallest prize, which was roughly a 4-inch long plushie. Now, the reason I know this is because I won a red one on my turn as well. The park employee tells the kid that she won a small plushie and can pick one out that she can see. Well, that's when the entitled kid started screaming, "I don't like any of those, I want a different one." The entitled mother then looks at their kid and asks them if they want to look inside of the bin more. Well, the entitled kid starts nodding and stomping her feet, making mud fly everywhere. "Yes, I want a different one." Now, the park employee looks absolutely baffled. Before they could even get a word in, the entitled mother picks up the kid and puts her behind the counter so she can start digging through the bin that was like maybe 2 inches taller than her. All the while, the entitled mother is listing some of the plushies that the entitled kid kid can't see. Now the park employee puts on the gotta smile or else I'm gonna lose my job face and starts showing the kid some of the plushies as well, presumably just to get her out of there as fast as possible. After just a few minutes of this cycle, the entitled kid found 2 plushies that she really liked at the same time. She turned to the park employee and tries to give the most adorable child face that they could possibly muster. She gave the puppy dog eyes and stuck out her lip and said, "Can I please have both?" But the park employee said, I'm sorry kid, but rules are rules. Unless you play again, you can't have both. You can only have one." The entitled mom then lets out a giant sigh, and then she says she doesn't have any more money to spend and that the kid can only have one. Well, as soon as the entitled mother said those words, this kid threw a fit that would make you think she had fire ants crawling in her hair. She was screaming, crying, stomping, throwing the plushies, and throwing herself onto the ground. The worst part, though, was when the entitled mother picked up this kid, the mother basically was pulling her by the legs while the kid was determined to keep her fingers gripped onto the counter. Her knuckles were literally turning white. The mom eventually pulled her off, picked up a random plushie, and took her away. I even heard the mom trying to bribe the kid with park treats like deep-fried Oreos and cotton candy if she would just stop crying, because at this point, a whole bunch of eyes were watching them. I finally got up to the counter where the park employee was cleaning the mud off of his counter, looking like he wanted nothing more than to lay on the ground and use the big plushie on the wall as a pillow. I looked at him and I said, "Well, that was something. I'm sorry you had to deal with that." Now, the park employee was getting angry, not necessarily at me, but at the situation. They said to me, "I don't understand why people think they can do that. Like, you're not allowed to come behind the counter." I just responded by saying, "Yeah, you're right, people are jerks," with the park employee expressing that he never wants to have any kids. I responded by saying, "Same here. Also, don't worry, I'm not going to be jumping the counter to get my prize." We ended up laughing and I play a few times and won a few small plushies. My friend finally comes back and I give them my prize. And then I tell them what happened, and they found it quite amusing. Now, we were a bit damp afterwards, but overall we really had a great time. Wow, that's honestly insane to me. First of all, it really seems like the entitled mother is like enabling their kid to act this way. Like, seriously, in my opinion, that behavior is 100% learned. That's literally a parent who didn't do their job to discipline their kid, and now everybody else in the world has to deal with it. And that's not fair for the park employee or anybody else in line. I know if I was in that line myself, I would be really annoyed. I would not want to put up with that at all. So with all things considered, good for the park employee as well as the original poster for keeping their cool, because I know if I was in that situation, the temptation to tell this lady to do better as a parent would be really strong, and I can only see that causing more problems than solutions. An entitled millionaire client that I'm forced to work with constantly derails everything we're trying to do for their $3 million house. And after dealing with this lady for over a year, I'm honestly so happy to finally be away from this crazy lady. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm a decorator, and I began working with a couple bad apples over a year ago when I was still getting established independently. This one client has been obsessed with getting the best deal and bargain on every single item that we have purchased. Mind you, this is a $3 million home, and she will squabble over even a $10 price difference. She also has zero respect for my livelihood. During design presentations, she whips out her laptop to search for cheaper versions of my selections. She owns a business that has nothing to do with design and used her tax ID to fraudulently open wholesale accounts with my vendors, which are only for members of the trade. It was honestly so disrespectful. I have devoted years to curating my list of vendors, as well as learning how to procure beautiful pieces, only for someone so entitled to go around me to buy wholesale instead of purchasing the product through me, which is violating my policy. This woman also has an eagle eye for supposed defects that she uses to try and get credits and refunds. She ordered her own shades and got the wrong size, then spent hours on the phone until customer service agreed to give her another credit. She manipulated my plumber and carpenter into lowering their rates, using this tone and acting as if she's in a separate class than them. This woman thinks she's entitled to decide how much she thinks someone is worth and how much she feels like paying after the work is done. Well, after over a year, we haven't completed much. I have redesigned some rooms 3 times and helped on rooms that weren't even on the scope because I just wanted something to get done so I can collect my check and run for the hills. Finally, though, I said I cannot continue the project without charging her a new fee. We have gone way over the time I charged for, and there's no end in sight. She hasn't focused, she hasn't gotten caught up in the minute details and literal dollars and cents at every turn, and she derails meetings by changing focus from room to room. I sent her the bill for the balance owed and deducted the last credit that she wanted, and wouldn't you guess it, this was completely unacceptable for her. She said that I should waive this fee and send her a check for the credit. But what about the hours upon hours of wasted time where she asked for redesigns again and again? She pointed out that this is a word-of-mouth business, and she already has an incredible designer who doesn't mind her stealing their vendors and has a cheaper price, I guess. So I told her, you know what, go right ahead and see how things go if she behaves the same way with this new decorator. Well, I called the vendor for her dining room wallpaper, and she has opened an account with them. My vendor revoked her access, and she will not be able to order the wallpaper unless she pays retail price, which is really too bad because my price was below retail. This is a classic entitled person mess up. Now, it is a small victory, but it certainly helps ease the pangs of disgust and violation. That must have seriously been a miserable experience. I mean, here you are trying to finish your job and give the client a good experience, but they are literally going around you just to try to get a cheaper price. And that is such a big red flag when working with a client. It's seriously not okay. So good for you for getting back at them as well as getting away from this client. Rich or not, they absolutely should not have treated you in this manner. And I seriously don't think they're going to have that much success if they try this with someone else. My manager claims he can't find any of my tips from my restaurant job, stating that it's gone missing and that he can't find it. And now I'm so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So some nights I'm allowed to get the last bus home. Tips are done at the end of the night, so sometimes I have to wait till next week to get them from that night. There has never been a problem with this, and the entire time I've worked in this restaurant, every single week or day after, the tips are always waiting for me, and I've trusted them with this ever since I started. Well, that all changed last Saturday. My manager let me take my bus home, and there were still a few tables around, so I would have to wait till my next shift to get my tips. In total, it was about 80 quid, which is roughly $100. And you know what? I was fine with this arrangement. Well, I asked for them yesterday, and my manager told me that he'd check the safe and give them to me today. And once again, I was completely fine with this, and I've never had a problem. I asked for them today, and he said he can't find them anywhere, and that they were definitely done for me. He said that they're not in the safe or anything like that. Now, I'm going to try again tomorrow, but this is really upsetting. It's 80 quid. I honestly don't know whether to think they were just accidentally thrown out or something like that, or if something happened to them. For reference, we use a glass for the tips, and they're in the front of the bar. Every single night, any tips for someone who has left already is wrapped up in an envelope and left in the glass. I'm really upset right now. I've never had a problem with this, and while I will ask about it tomorrow, I know that I'm just gonna get the same response. So honestly, is this some kind of accident or is something else going on here? What should I do? This is messed up in so many ways. For starters, you trusted these people to keep your money safe so that you can pick it up on your next shift. Literally, all your manager had to do was put the money in the safe and you would have your tips in your hands. So with that in mind, there's two major possibilities that have happened here, and honestly, neither of them are great. Either your manager misplaced your money or somebody stole your money and ran off with it. Both of these options really suck. But here's the thing, in my opinion, regardless of what happened to your money, your manager is absolutely on the hook to replace it. If you earned 80 quid that night, then guess what? The manager needs to cough it up and find that money somewhere and give it to you. This is not negotiable, and this really will determine if you really do want to work there, because it starts with incidents like this, and then it leads to you just getting taken advantage of. And trust me, as somebody who's been in that situation, it is not fun. I also think it would be a really good idea for you to stop trusting these people with your money. Like, if this incident is any indication at all, then in my opinion, I think it's time for you to start waiting for your money at the end of the night and just find another way home, because that money is yours and you absolutely deserved it. And no matter what the manager says, they are absolutely responsible for getting that money back into your wallet. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.